appreciate you all coming out here today, and we're going to share two very unique stories with you. I'm so happy that you are going to get an opportunity to hear not only my story, but to hear Eric Krug's story. He is absolutely one of the most inspirational people I've ever met. We are here to talk to you about alcohol awareness and the dangers of drinking and driving and choices and consequences. And believe me, that applies to everybody's life. Well, you see up here, I spent 3,117 days in a cell just like this because of the choice I made. Let me just tell you something. That choice I made, it cost the lives of two wonderful people. They're no longer here anymore. They're dead because of what I did. That choice that I made it when I was 22 years old. You know what? I was trying to have fun. I was trying to enjoy my life. But on April 11th of 2000, that is the night that I made this choice, a night I will never forget. I remember that night I was at this party. It was a small party, just a small group of us got together. I had 4 drinks. My friend Jesse and I, we got a phone call from some of our friends. They were down the road at another party. Man, everybody we knew was going to this other party. So, of course, Jesse and I, we wanted to go too. I remember when my friends called me up, I told them I'd be over in a little while. Jesse and I, we went right out to my car. I got into the driver's seat, and then Jesse, he came around and got into the passenger seat. And then we drove off. Except we never made it to that other party. I was driving down this back road. It was somewhat in the country. It was a shortcut to where this party was at. You know what? That road is not far from where we are right now. That road I knew so well because it was a shortcut to my friend's house. And as I was driving down this road, I had my radio up, and Jesse and I, we were cutting up and laughing, and I was starting to get into a hurry to get to this other party, so I start flying down the road. To about 80 miles an hour. This small country road, little 2-lane road, the speed limit there was 35. I'm just going to say this, my friends and I, we did used to speed up and down it, so I really didn't think it was that big of a deal. I was going 80 miles an hour in a 35-mile zone. I drove up onto this white minivan. As I drove up onto this white minivan, the only thing I was thinking about was, getting to the party to hook up with my friends, and I just decided to blow past them. I didn't want to have to wait for that car. As soon as I passed this white minivan, right down the road a little ways, I could see this oncoming vehicle. It was a car in the other lane coming in my direction. They had their left-hand turn signal on. I could see that yellow light blinking right there. So I started to gradually try to get back over to my lane. And as I was getting back over to my lane, I could see this gold flash shoot in front of my face. Then bang! So it was incredibly loud and solid sound. And everything went black. After several seconds had passed, I could not see anything yet. But I started to hear my tires roll off the edge of the road. And as soon as they came to a stop, that's when I opened my eyes and I found myself pinned on the passenger side dashboard. I could not hardly think. I couldn't even grasp what was happening. But when I crawled out of that car, I noticed that my right leg had been dislocated from my hip and it was wrapped around on my back. And where my knee had slammed into the dashboard right next to the steering wheel, it was bleeding severely. I started to fall in and out of consciousness from the pain. But the next time I regained my consciousness, at least the next thing I remember, was there was an officer standing over me. He knelt over me, and he looked right at me, and he said, "Have you been drinking?" When I was lying there, so worried about maybe going to jail for a DUI, worried about what happened to my car, I hear someone in the background yell, "There's a fatality on the scene. There's a fatality on the scene." And as soon as I hear those words, I realize right then that I just killed somebody. After I was released from the hospital, I was able to read a police report, a newspaper article, all kinds of stuff, and I started reading along about everything that happened that night. Well, I started to read along, and it said that I was driving down this back road, passing this white minivan. They said I was going approximately 77 miles an hour. Now, one of the ways they were able to determine this is because my speedometer had actually stuck at 77 miles an hour on impact. So, after the crash, they had pictures of everything, and there was one picture of my speedometer. Never forget it. And I kept on reading, and it said that when I passed the white minivan, and as I tried to get back over to my lane, The oncoming vehicle, you know, the one with the left-hand turn signal on, it was a big four-door sedan. Well, they tried to make a left-hand turn into a driveway on this country road. As soon as they made that turn, I was going too fast. I'd been drinking. I wasn't paying attention. And there was no way that I could stop. And I plowed right into the rear passenger door, completely cutting their car in half, leaving the front half of the car right there in the driveway, and then the back half was ripped off that vehicle and dragged another 100 feet down the road. Thinking back on it now, yes, I was definitely drunk, but then I felt like I just had a buzz, thought it was no big deal. But I climbed into my car, and I killed somebody's grandparents. There's nothing that can ever change that. After this horrible year was over with, it was on April 10th, 2001. That was the day I had to go to court. You know, the judge, he read the sentence off to me, and then he gave me one moment to speak. But you know, it didn't matter what I said. I could never change what I did. And when I was finished, they came and the deputies handcuffed me and they escorted me out. And to me, that was my last moment of complete freedom. Well, sure enough, I was being sent to this prison. And I remember the day we left, we were all shackled up together on this bus, and we start heading towards Jackson. And when we pull up to Jackson, there's so much razor wire on the fence, it's like you can hardly see through it. They have guard towers placed all the way around it. You know, this is a maximum security prison. This is where they house all the death row inmates. I mean, this is where 2,000 people are that have committed every crime you can think of. Sometimes your consequences are going to be way different than what you could even ever imagine. I share that with you so you understand how important it is to make the right choices, to make sure other people make the right choices, to make sure your friends make the right choices. Because if you don't, you endure regret for the rest of your life. This is Eric, and Eric Krug has become one of the most inspirational people I've ever met.
Hello. My name is Eric Krug, and thanks to the wonderful world of technology, I am able to communicate a short message to you through this special software program. I would prefer to deliver my own message to you today, but these injuries from a DUI car crash 15 years ago prevent me from speaking and doing many other things. My college life ended very suddenly from a DUI crash. That night was supposed to be a wonderful evening for me and my friends. But it did not turn out that way. Whenever I have the opportunity to tell my story, I want to remind you that being in the audience was something I also have done, and sometimes I would listen and sometimes I would not. Hopefully you hear something in my story that will save your life or one of your friends.
I want to tell you a little bit about our story after Eric talks. Please.
I was kinda on a date when my wreck happened.
You were kind of on a date when your wreck happened. That's right. You got to understand, we are reminding each other every day of a bad event that happened in our life, but we are also there to help each other. So I'm here to help Eric tell his story to you today. He went to Brookwood High School. He did play football and baseball there. He was a very gifted athlete, right? Yeah, you're pretty gifted. I think his big dream, though, was to continue playing baseball. And when he graduated, he was offered a scholarship over at Oglethorpe University. So his dream was coming true. Man, when he got to Oglethorpe, he had a great career over there. He did wonderful. And then came around his junior year. His junior year is when he turned 21. Well, that year, he was voted the most valuable defensive player, and he made all conference. I mean, he was doing really good with his athletic skills, and he was also very, very smart. That night came his 21st birthday. That was on April 11th of 97. He first had a baseball game to go to. It's over at West Georgia. So their plan was they were going to go to the game, and then after that, they were all going to get together and go out and celebrate his birthday. Okay, at 12 o'clock, Eric turns 21. We're going out to party. Well, they were going to go because Oglethorpe's centered around Atlanta. They were going to go downtown to Buckhead because there used to be a bunch of bars there, and everyone went there. And so that's where they all went. The rule of thumb that they all had with each other is that they needed to take a taxi home. Eric's sister literally walked Eric and his girlfriend out to the taxi cab and put them in. You know, Eric had been drinking. He was highly intoxicated by the end of his night. His 21st birthday. And it was time to go. Well, there was one group of Eric's friends that decided not to take a taxi. So Eric and his girlfriend get out of the taxi and they jump in with their friends. And the girl driving the car, you know, she's typical scenario. She had the least amount to drink, but she was just as drunk as everyone else. She gets in the car and she drives down the road, and then she makes it all the way back to the college campus. They let her in through security. She just drives around the corner. Well, let me just tell you, I don't know what it was then, but now the speed limit's like 15 miles an hour. So it's a small campus, small roads. She takes off down the road and she's going about 35, 45 miles an hour, which is fast for this little road. She comes around a corner and she loses control and she slides into some trees. And she hit these trees, it was with enough force that Eric's best friend, Tim, he was in the back seat. He was the only one not wearing a seatbelt. And he was projected all the way into the front dash with his head. When he hit that head first, his head split open. Remember recently we met the resident assistant that was there, an RA. The girl told us that her job was to hold Tim's head shut. Tim made it to the hospital, but later on, Tim, he did die. Eric, he was in the passenger seat. He had the window down. It was April. It was a nice night out. He had his right hand hanging out the door. You know, they're ready to get back. I'm telling you, when this crash happened, they were about 300 yards from the college dormitory. You could see it. And he had his right hand out the window. And when they slid into those trees and they went into some other trees, right when they hit those trees, it grabbed his right arm. Show him real quick, Eric. Grabbed his right arm and severed it from the elbow right there. Ripped it right off. And you know what? They wanted to amputate it. They wanted to be done with it, but they actually were able to repair it. But they couldn't repair it completely. But at least he didn't lose his arm. But now, show him real quick, his arm doesn't work the same. His hand almost stays shut. He has to work very hard to get it to open. He still wears a brace every night he goes to sleep. And his tendons, what they've done is they've just completely tightened up on him. But he can still use it to hold things. But he'll never be able to throw a baseball again. His arm's not going to work like that. And I know that his family and many others wish that that was like the worst part about it. But, you know, it's not. It's very obvious. You see, Eric, when they hit that tree, his head hit the tree too. His head hit the tree between 35 and 45 miles an hour. His brain swelled up. It damaged every lobe on his brain. He went into a coma. And he was in that coma pretty much for over a year. You see, Eric was suffering from traumatic brain injury. He almost died.